Thank you, everybody, for coming to this presentation. My name is Samir Mokashi, and I was the founder of Code Unlimited. You might have come across that. We were a code consulting firm in the Pacific Northwest, and we sold it to Jensen Hughes in 2022. My wife and I were partners in that firm. And after we sold it, we stayed with Jensen Hughes for a few years. And then uh, earlier this year, I retired technically. And retirement for me means different than my wife. But retirement for me means starting the Business Millionaire Club, which is a firm to, in short, really to help make a few more millionaires, help firm owners transition from firm ownership to the next phase of their life. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to prepare for that and etc. I also have a book coming up in 5th of November this year, and I'm also starting a food company, Timoli Foods for Timoli sauce, which is a sauce, secret sauce, family sauce recipe that we created a few years back. And now that I have more time on my hand, I'm getting ready to prepare it, market it, commercialize, and all of that. So if you have a secret food recipe that you're trying to bring to market, I can talk about that separately as well. That's a very interesting process, discovery process, and I figured out a way how to bring products out to market that until then I did not know. So with that, let's get started on today's presentation. So the reason for this presentation uh, um, is part of it is when I went to market, I always had anticipated I would sell my company. But when I went to market and after I finished the market, I realized that the normal uh, M&A brokers are there for the deal. And I had to do a lot of homework and prepare in order to go through the process well. And I've always been passionate about entrepreneurship and about entrepreneurs. I mentored a lot of entrepreneurs along the way. And so after I said, I want to do this as a service to everybody. So you have somebody in your corner who's got your back and your interest, not just closing of the deal. And as I go through this presentation, you'll understand the difference between getting paid and having a successful exit. There's two different things. Even getting paid is a rarity, is what I learned as I went along and looked at it. I realized that for many entrepreneurs, 80% of their net worth is their business ownership. And almost 70% of the entrepreneurs at the end of the day just walk away. They're just tired at the end of the day, commonly. And it's like, I don't have the energy to go find a buyer and sell it. And two, they never anticipate selling the business. They're always selling their business, their services. And there's a big difference between selling services and selling your business. And if you're not ready for it, then invariably you make missteps and miss it out and do it. So my name, the Business Millionaire Club, one is there's already so many names taken that I had to find a unique name. And then the question becomes, the name has to represent what I'm doing, just Code Unlimited. When we started Code Unlimited, the name had to have code in it, and everybody thinks code limits design. And we brought the perspective code is actually more creative than most architects envision. And so we said Code Unlimited. So there's no limits on the design, is how we did it. And similarly, the Business Millionaire Club is my kind of the gist of it is to help make a few more millionaires, and that's my goal. So learning objectives today, we'll learn about the different exit scenarios. There's multiple exit scenario. Exit is just transitioning from ownership to the next step in your life. And understanding the right strategy and making different aspects of it work, understanding valuation, tax, planning, all of that. So I'll touch on all of those briefly. And if you want to get one-on-one, we can do that more later on as well. But there's a lot more to each facet. There's specialists in different aspects of it, and there's generalists that cover broad things. So there's more than one thing to consider as you get closer to the time when you want to exit your business. So one of the things that I get quite a lot when I'm mentoring architects in even professionally as professional architects versus business owners as well, most of them is I'm happy where I am. Why should I grow? And so the growing of the business is tied to the selling of the business as well. So there are two types of businesses, especially in the service industry. One is a lifestyle business. A lifestyle business is where you get a regular income, but if you want to kind of get rewarded for the value that you build in the business, then there's very little value to it. And so when you get to sell the business, you don't get a good buyer or a good price, and you just walk away, right? So my firm belief is you should sell the business, not because it makes you a millionaire, which it will, but because the investment that you've done in building the business, the reputation, the credibility, the team, the services, all of that is a value to the society. And if you walk away, that just goes away, poof. And then all those people who depended on that service, either as a service for their businesses or a way to be employed and generate income, all of that goes away, right? So it's a disservice to the society if you just walk away. And sometimes people think walking away is a generous thing to do. And in my view, walking away is not a generous thing to do. And we'll talk about it as we go along in there. And then why do you grow the business? If you're making a couple $100,000 a year, why do you need to get bigger than that? I think part of it is the value of the business to a buyer is not based on just the static income, but the growth, and that eventually can lead to their a multiplier effect of their investment in what you get in return, right? A lot of the buyers who are coming into the business are a few of the buyers coming in will come in for a lifestyle business if you're selling internally, but many of the buyers are coming that I'm going to buy this business and sell this business in lieu of investing in the stock market or in lieu of my 401k and investments, things like that. So growing the business is part and parcel of having a long-term value for the business to the buyer coming in. What affects the value of the business besides revenue? A lot of people think that, hey, I'm profitable, I'm making money, and so anybody would want to buy that. But it depends a lot about how the money comes in. If the money is tied to just your personality, your credibility, and your ability to sell the product, next person coming in doesn't get anything because the clients just walk away. There are other competitors that the clients can go to. They may not be as good as you, but they might go to them because they're more established, are more known, more of a known commodity versus the buyer coming in to buy maybe an unknown commodity. So your buyer is taking the risk of buying your business and expecting a return on it. So the value of your business is not only dependent on the money you can bring in annually, but the people that you have, the process that you have established, and the ability to grow from here to next, independent of whether you are part of the business or not part of the business. And so all of these components are important. And then we'll talk about how do you sell a business, how do you position your business so that people understand the value that you're bringing, independent of who you are. And then oftentimes there is a transition period when the owners leaves to help transition and keep the clients happy, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that as well. And then the common thing is a lot of businesses overestimate the value of the business. And remember, when somebody's trying to buy your business, they're trying to get a good deal as well. So they are going to see if you can come lower than your expectations, okay? And it depends on the market. If the market is hot and everybody's trying to get it, then they're just going to pick you up and pay the price you want, or even give you a bigger premium price than you want and take it, right? So if the market drives it, it's the same thing as the housing market. It's the same thing as the stock market. When the market is hot, you get better than the price you expected. When the market is not so hot, you get lower than the price you expected. And often the owners have a very emotional connected. It's like every mother thinks their baby is the most beautiful baby. It's the third person's perspective of how beautiful the baby is that matters, right? So positioning your firm to be able to sell it profitably is a very important aspect of how this happened. And that's why you have to think about it early. That's why you think about it as preparing the groundwork to recuperate all the efforts that you put in, which is sweat and equity, but into real value at the end of it. So different kind of selling scenarios that exist. So in the worst case sell is liquidation. So if you have a building that you bought, if you have equipment that you have, liquidation is literally just liquidating all the uh, uh, assets, tangible assets that you have, and getting the money back. So that's liquidation. That's the worst kind of thing. Liquidation works for where you need equipment and manufacturing, things like that, that could be sold. But for service industry, that's really not an option. It's just worst case option is getting out of it and not losing money. Then the management buyout, it's where you have the team that you established buying it. The challenge in the management buyout is often the people that who are working for you often did not come in understanding what it takes to be a business, and they may not be even interested in owning it as a business. So that is the challenge, and they often do not have the money to buy the business at the price that you're probably wanting them to buy it. So it requires a loan to be done, and there are small business associations that give loans. There's other private equity who can raise capital, things like that, and that can be done. But those are the challenges. If you have people who are interested in buying, then more the merrier and works better. A partnership transfer, if you already have partners, you can do it. Intergenerational transfer is keeping it in the family and your next family member taking it as well. So intergenerational family is actually, there's a lot of family-owned businesses in the US, and is a very good market and hot market and works very well. But it depends on whether you have the next generation interested in buying the company or not. Employee ownership, kind of the blend between management and employee ownership. For employee ownership, there's some complex regulatory requirements, but you also get tax benefits out of it. So employee ownership is a firm about 30 or more people. Employee ownership is very good. But the complexity of setting it up and the complexity of managing it is the reason why there's not as many ESOPs, employee stock ownership plan, ESOP companies in the US. But those that there are actually very well, because it has a very strong cultural basis, it's a strong sense of belonging. It's our company to the employers, and that works really well. So the management buyout is few people buying it. Employee ownership is all employees becoming part of it. The market value is whatever the value the market decides. The owner value and the strategic investor value are the next step over. The market value is go to market, and you open it up and everybody comes in at that price. So, and then and on this slide, you're looking at this multiples. These are not the multiples for a service industry company. Service industry, the bottom liquidation is barely one or anything. The management buyout to strategic buyout, somewhere between 3 to 6 is very typical in the market, depending on how niche and how compatible it is. So in the owner value and the strategic investor are looking for a particular fit. Maybe you are in the right market location, for example. For example, for Code Unlimited, when we went to market, we were very strong in the Pacific Northwest, and Jensen Hughes was not so strong in the Pacific Northwest. So it was a strategic relationship that really worked in both of our advantages for both of us in that instance. The owner value is somebody who wants to buy in, sees the value, believes they can grow it, but it's not a strategic fit. So strategic fit where one buyer buys another entity, and combined will be 1 + 1 = 3, or at least 2.5, right? So those are kind of things about how things change. Then, okay, so how do you plan it so you can do the $1 million plus exit, right? And $1 million is a nice word. You could be 8 figures in this industry, not unknown of 9 figures is not common in the service industry. You really have to be large, but 6, 7, 8 figures is very possible in our services-driven industry in current market time. The market is still good next year. It takes some time. It generally takes six months at least to about 2+ years, depending on where your company is, how ready your company is, how ready you are in order to go to the market. So the first one of the ownership transition is why do you want to sell it? Well, yeah, I want to get the money. Yes, but beyond that is why. So you want to transition in because you're tired and you want to walk out is one thing. Transition because you're brought the company to a good place and you want to hand it to somebody else who can be a good steward for your company. You believe that you've achieved a unique position and could be complementary to some other company and adds value to them, and they can do it. You're at a place where you need to have a financial cash infusion in order to grow. You're hit the ceiling because what you can grow organically and you don't do it, right? So all of those different reasons. There could also be a reason that sometimes it's personal reasons, it's family reasons, all of those things why you want to transition. Based on that, the why of the transition, then the how. Are you desperate? Are you not desperate? Right? So if you want to make a fire sale, go make a fire sale and get what you got and get out of it. You're tired, you're some other situation. But if you're not, if you have time, then plan it and get the right way. Agree on the how of the ownership transition. So how of the ownership transition means what happens to you and your role post exit. Okay. And so in terms of once you start thinking what you want to do and what you want to be and the key stakeholders in your company, what they are looking forward to, then you can plan whether you want to go to a strategic buyer, you want to go to your competitor, if you want to open it up and whoever comes in, or how do you want to do that? Or do you want to sell it to internal, right? So the how, then once you why you're selling it, then how you're selling it, because what you want out of it, and then how do you get to that is that, and know your firm value and what drives it higher. So a lot of times, when you are the owner and you're trying to get most out of the business at that time, you make decisions based on your interest. But now you have to position the company in the best interest of the potential buyer. And you don't even know the buyer, right? So you have to anticipate a buyer type and plan for that. But you have to stay flexible because the actual buyer might be somebody else than you anticipated, right? You might get surprised pleasantly. So and then planning that and understanding your tangibles and intangibles and where you can push pull to make it better, right? So those things. So that's what your drives are. What's going to drive the value of your company. And then, for example, I'm working with somebody now who has an office in India, and that creates an interesting opportunity for a large company in India to buy that firm because they might be looking for a US place of business to branch out internationally, and having an international Indian office then provides them a great opportunity, right? It could be for somebody who's been trying to get to an international office that is lower cost, but are afraid to go there because of the horror stories we hear about it, right? So knowing what makes sense is important to do it. Understanding and training your transitional leaders. So having a senior executive who knows how to run the business, having a senior executive who knows about the business are very different perspectives. Know who's ready to take on the ownership of the business, because the buyer coming in saying, if I put the money in, do I have to also put in that much hours to make it run well after the purchase, or can the existing owners take on the entrepreneurial perspective and take it to the next level, right? So those kind of things are important. There's no right answer. And you can position a company in saying, okay, I have a team of people who are good managers, want to run the company, but don't want to take ownership or leadership. And often the purchasing entity has a senior leader who's interested in showing their chops and growing that way, right? So that can work very well as well in that regard. So there's no right answer, but understanding your strengths and weaknesses and your potential to a buyer is how you want to work on it. So build a self-driven sustainable business development. This is a key thing that I've often found lacking. A lot of the business owners, their gumption, their drive, their hard work is often what keeps bringing the business in. There's a few others who bring some business in as well because of the reputation that the owner has built, things like that, but they don't really understand how to do business development as a sustainable business development. So going after the RFP, sending a proposal in, winning that proposal is different than having a pipeline developed for consistent business, right? To have a pipeline for consistent business, you have to have a very organized manner. So you have to have target customers. You have to have realistic target customers. I mean, I've worked in businesses where the market goes down and suddenly everybody wants to go into a new market, which is a hot market. It doesn't work that way. You have to be in that market before the market becomes hot. You have to be in that market when the market is not hot and build your reputation, your credibility, and your skill sets, right? Which is the hard part, which many owners, especially small business owners, are risk averse. People think business owners are risk takers. No, they're risk managers. And small businesses are often risk averse and they don't want to go into a new field because they're not sure of their capability. So when you're risk averse in the business development aspect early on, you don't grow as fast as things like that. So building a sustainable thing is something important. And then you literally have to hand over the reins of the business development, but at the same time, keep overall control of how that is managed, how efficient it is, what is the cost versus return on investment, and what is the strategic buyer, what is the regular buyer, which is a small time occasional buyer. All of these, you develop strategy based on that, and then you target your key stakeholders in your company who are interested in it or have the skill set to develop into it. And the other thing you have to do is aggressively reduce the firm's liabilities. So if you have debt, clear the debt. If you have bad clients and bad projects, try to wrap them up, close them up, have them buttoned up, have legal agreements that will reduce the liability down the road, things like that. Make sure insurance cover everything. All of those things are important because when you get to the due diligence, and if the buyer starts seeing that you're not clean, then that can break the deal very quickly. So execute a plan to increase the firm's positive. So often, and this is something that happens before you go to market. Before you go to market, understand what's your strength, accentuate your strengths, build upon that strengths, and make sure, because no buyer wants to look at the negatives. They want to see the positives because they want to make the buy, right? So your strong positives are important, and minimizing your negatives is important. You don't have to eliminate negatives. Don't worry about the negatives. Everybody has some skeleton in the closet, right? So make sure that the closet is then you find a few bones, but not a full skeleton, right? So those are kind of things that is important. They seem very logical, right? What I'm talking about. It's so simple. Yeah, what's the big deal? You'll be surprised how many firms don't do that, right? So having a plan, having what matters, and knowing what is important, those things are the first you want to do. Pick the right M&A advisor. I cannot emphasize that fact. There's lots of firms, and oftentimes I find buyers go and say, the first one that walks through their door, they'll say, okay, good, I'm on. Go get me a buyer. Just like your clients when you start your business, just like when you decide go, no go on your projects, you should have a go, no go on your M&A advisor. You should have a criteria of what your M&A advisor should be, and pick the right advisor. Make sure that the culture of the advisor and the goals of the advisor are aligned with your culture and your goals. And that's how you make that change. And commonly, most owners don't think about selling, so they don't know any M&A advisors, right? But just do your due diligence and get there. Okay. Find the right buyer. The buyer with the biggest price tag may not be the right buyer if you want to have some control later on, or if you want to achieve certain goals later on. So if you're just walking away, take the best price, walk away. If you're not just going to walk away and you're invested in what happens to your company, whether it name stays, whether the name goes, whether the firm offices stay, whether the people stay, then finding the right buyers. But that means that you're compromising on price for longevity or sustainability or creativity or whatever is that your target goal. So understanding the why of the ownership transition and how the ownership comes back to finding a criteria for the buyer and anticipating that. Anticipate and manage your role and lifestyle change. I mean, so many people say, oh, I'm fine, I'll just walk away. No, you're not just fine and going to walk away. You didn't get here by walking away from anything, right? So even when you're tired, you will de-stress, you will get off from that being tired, and then you're ready to re-engage again. And that's important. All day, you are thinking of your business. Even if you have a good work-life balance, you're always thinking about your business when you're an owner. what are you going to think about when you're not? And your wife and your kids and your friends might go crazy with this guy now who has nothing to focus on. They're focusing on me, and I'm just doing fine. Why is that person trying to manage my life for me? So it's just an extreme example, but no matter what, you have to figure out what is it that you want to do. If you want to teach, if you want to engage in community activities, if you want to travel, if you want to just hang out with your kids and grandkids and whatever is it, understand that and practice some of it before you actually get there. It is not that easy. It might be more challenging than you think. Okay. So selling the business, once you get a buyer and they have signed your LOI and letter of intent, and now they're going to give you a price and things like that. So then now the negotiations and selling of the business starts, right? So understand what is the buyer looking to get. You had a targeted strategy of what you thought the buyer is going to look for. And then now you have the buyer, right? So now that you have the buyer, now you have to question them and understand what is it that they saw, what is it that they're looking for, what end goals do you think they think, and based on that, showcase what your company has, because they'll get and look under the hood quite a bit, and they will do it. And then you have to strategize on demonstrate what the buyer. You also have to now, up till now, hopefully you haven't told too many people. Because if you tell where anybody else who without an NDA, so if you tell somebody, you have to make sure they have a non-disclosure agreement and make sure that they keep it confidential and don't share it with anybody, because you can spook other employees, you can spook clients, and your value of your company will drop, and the buyer will think, oh my God, I'm not getting into this mess. Right. So understanding the confidentiality, maintaining confidentiality is important. Having a clarity in the communications when you do tell key people of your company, how you will tell the rest of your staff, all of that is important. How will you tell your clients? Oftentimes, the buyer coming in is the larger entity. They have some certain ideas about how they want to tell your clients and their clients that they've added a new business. Depending on the situation, the clients may or may not worry too much, because if the rest of the people are there, the next owner is going to leave you be, let you be, and not change a whole lot of things, then your communications to internally and externally to clients, consultants, things like that are not a big deal. Some of the things that you might care about is, for example, if you were a small business, you may no longer be a small business. So you might lose that portion of the business that depended on you being a small business or veterans business or whatever the extra oomph that was there in your business as a separator, distinguisher between your business and others. And depending on the type of business, that can be a significant matter or not a significant matter. So if a lot of your business is based on that certification, then going back to what kind of buyer do you want? You want to look for a buyer that has those credentials or comparable credentials, right? Because if you are a minority business, then getting to a woman-owned business would still be not a big shift. But and if you want to go into a veterans-owned business or tribal business or things like that. So there are different things you can look at. And you have a very specific buyer need that can make it a niche purchase, or it can make a strategic purchase, right? So the buyer who is a niche buyer may be looking for certain type of businesses as well. So they might also have a very narrow focus. So if you have a narrow focus and they have a narrow focus, so that could be a strategic deal, right? So not all narrow focuses are bad for your business or your selling, but understanding the strategy of who you market to, how you position your company, and how you go to market and how do you get the best value. All of that needs to be thought through. So now you can see, just like a design process, you have to understand the parameters, you have the strengths and weaknesses of the site, then you build a building, you have the client goals, you have the community goals, and then build it all together, right? The selling of the business is very similar, and many entrepreneurs don't spend enough time doing it. So part of it is you don't have the experience. This is a once in a lifetime deal. You'll do it once and you may never do it again. And there are a few serial entrepreneurs who keep doing it and are better at it. And that's why you need to get a good consultant who can help you navigate this and have your back while they do it. So then define your role after the sale is important. So remember that you will not have the management control once you sell it, but your power and ability to influence people internally and externally did not come because you own the company. It came because of the personality that you are, right? So you know that. Some of you may not know that, but I know that it happens because of your personality. But your staff may not see it that way. They say, "Oh my God, the owner is not the CEO anymore. I have to go to this person to get that done. This person," and there'll be a lot of confusion. So defining your role after the sale, selling that or communicating that well internally and externally is important. But not only is it important, the definition of your role. When you're selling the company, you're talking to the buyer's negotiating team. After the sale, you'll be working with the buyer's project management and administrative and executive team, right? So making sure if you have very specific terms and conditions you want met, make sure it's part of the agreement going in. So when you, after the sale, you can bring it up and say, here's what we agreed to and we need to do. So understanding what you want to do and making sure that's in the agreement is important. Earnout is when you sell the company, or often there is a kind of a carrot in the end, which is earnout, that if you hit certain goals, thou shalt make so much more money. So earnout sounds great because you're looking at it from your company's perspective. Oh yeah, I can easily get 5% growth. Oh yeah, I can get in 15% growth. I've been doing it. But after you sold and you don't have control, making those numbers work. And depending on who's evaluating and what are the metrics they're evaluating, there might be different issues. So understanding what the earnout is, if there is an earnout, and what kind of terms are applied, how will it get evaluated, all of those things should be thought through in the beginning of the sale process, because after the fact, it's hard to change that. Because people who are going to come in and talk to you afterwards are going to be very different people than who you're talking to when you're selling your company. So that kind of things, understanding the process, understanding what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, those kind of things is what you need to plan for. What if the culture that you and your employees, what is the culture that you and your employees are joining is important aspect of it, right? So, and culture is such a loose definition that somebody will say, oh yeah, this is our culture. Oh yeah, we love this culture. And it's hard to change. So you have to understand how the buyer's company operates on a day-to-day level, not what's on their website, not what's on their marketing materials, right? But you have to understand it. And that's often hard to do. And one of the toughest things is judging the day-to-day culture versus the global or the visionary culture. That also can be a challenge. So that is a challenge. So for that reason, you need to prepare your employees who will stay on, that no matter what we think their culture is, the realities of how we will interact with the new bosses may be different. And helping them understand that just because your boss talks differently or acts differently does not mean your job is in jeopardy or your professional growth is in jeopardy. So those who have been in the company for a long time are maybe more rigid in their perspective of what they expect, and that's why they are there. And some of them, unfortunately, might leave your company. So you might anticipate some migration out of your company, but also there might be others in the company that are buying your company who are looking to grow and they might step into that role. So not all is bad. People move on, people change for whatever reason, and it's not always because you were bad. It is often because the situation for that employee changed. And that's what will happen post-sale. Anyway, not everybody will stay, and which is okay because you help them grow to the position they are in and allows them to find a new opportunity that is different than the post merger in your company, but still be a good professional opportunity for that employee, and they are growing and continue to grow and get better out of it. And there's often emotional baggage that comes with it, so they might resent you for selling the company, but eventually they will benefit from it. So short-term vision, long-term vision. Remember, you got into business as an owner because you have a thick skin. Nobody survives being a business owner without a thick skin. So don't get too emotionally attached with the emotional reaction to selling of the company. That will also evolve over time. And you will notice that those who will complain are sometimes there because they complain anyway, and sometimes they're complaining for a valid reason. But over time, they will see the value of what they got by being in your company, going through the sale process, and it's a normal things change in life anyway. So there's not a whole lot you can do about changes. The world changes around us whether we want it or not. So understanding that and communicating that to your employees and saying, yes, yeah, it won't be perfect. Here's what I'm working hard to achieve. There's no guarantees in life, but if we all work together, we can get most of what we want. So how will your clients see the new owners in your company? That all depends on your relationship with the clients. If clients come and go and not long-term clients, it probably will be the same. They'll just judge you as a commodity. If the clients are there for relationship reasons, then as long as the key employees continue and the relationship continues, they'll be fine. They won't have any problems with it, right? Some of the clients who were there for certain certain things might leave and go with that individual if that individual leaves. So what you want to do is build in loyalty by having retention agreements where they get a certain bonus as just as you're making a windfall, they'll get a windfall potentially by staying on and transitioning up. Like I said, this is a free work opportunity country, so nobody's going to just stay in one business. Just as businesses lay off employees, employees move for better opportunities as well. So you're not going to keep everybody tied down, but if you can have the right environment, right culture, right legacy, you will keep those who will work with the new enterprise, new culture, new structure, whatever. And there'll be others who'll join as well, who may not have come to your company because they didn't agree with the structure or they didn't see a potential for growth. And now that company is bigger, there'll be others who come as well. So it's kind of an evolution. There's a lot of changes that will happen. It's not a static transition, but it is important to understand that that is part of the process. Change is inevitable. You cannot manage all of that will change. You cannot even anticipate all that would change or not change or everything. So you don't want to be too controlling, but you want to be communicative. You want to be optimistic. You want to be presenting the right mind frame and the right long-term potential is how you will succeed the best in terms of what you get out of this. So planning for your post-exit life is also important. And many focus on the sale part. And there's a large statistics show that there's a large group of owners who have seller's remorse after the sale. And that surprised me. Like, okay, you were ready to sell, you sold the company, what happened? The problem is not having the right expectations and not managing the sale and the post-exit lifestyle becomes a challenge. So first of all, wealth planning. So there's a term called the wealth gap. The wealth gap is what you would like to have after you exit from the company in terms of your personal net worth. And what you will actually get is the wealth gap. And commonly what happens is, one, there might be a gap between what you think is the value of the company and what you will actually get as value of the company. The other thing that people don't realize is, say you get 2 million as your part of the sale. And so that out of that 2 million, you'll be paying fees to the lawyers, the CPAs, the brokers, all of them who are part of the deal. So some of that will be go towards them. You will your 2 million potential can get reduced to less if you have to do retention agreements and have to give some of that money to others so they can stay, right? So that can also reduce that cost. And then taxes, federal and state taxes are going to take the thing, whether it's a stock sale or an asset sale, that can change the taxing of the company, right? So one, understanding that upfront and whether you're ready to exit today, whether you need to exit in 2 years and have that wealth gap be smaller, or you have to change your life goals to adjust to the wealth gap and get out now because the market is there. So all of those things, the wealth planning is a very important part of the sale process. And sometimes it is hard talking to owners about this because they're still running the company. So you're still running your company while somebody like me is coming to you and say, okay, have you talked, well, have you looked at the wealth gap? It's like, I don't have time to deal with wealth gap. Trust me, you have to make time for the wealth gap, right? So the tax planning and understanding. So oftentimes there's a tax planning associated with individual taxes. You will probably establish a trust to protect your assets. You might do trust in order to reduce your tax burden. So you need to talk to a good trust attorney who knows what they're doing in doing that. Your M&A broker should have a list, and they should be able to introduce you to who you're going to do or things like that. You might already have somebody who's doing it, but the typical trust that you do just for estate transfer is different than tax planning for a big sale like that. So find a good firm who can help you with that, because it can make a significant reduction in the after taxes after you sell. And one of the things is important to know that wealth planning and the wealth lab is there, but after you sell, if you're not going to withdraw money right away, if you have a way of having a small business or something like that, that's actually not a bad way to do it, because your money then grows in compounding interest and continues to grow at a very large scale, because now this is a large pot of money that you're invested compared to all your investments up till now. And this investment will grow significantly. And within a few years, you might be able to just live off this growth, and you're drawing down very little of it. So it's very, but the thing to manage is, managing money is a job by itself. When you have a lot of money, you have to have the right people help you manage the money. Otherwise, you won't keep a lot of that money. So in order to keep the money and grow the money, you have to have the right people help you, and that is an important part of it. So one of the lessons I learned is as you have grow your net value, it is important to have a good structure of advisors around you, can advise you on taxes, advise you on investment, advise you on other things that you have to do, having a travel advisor, all of those things become part of it. And you're looking, why do I have to spend money to do all this? I could do it myself. It's a lot. If you can do it, that's a full-time job, and that's fine. But recognize all the things that come with having money. All right. Then estate planning is how do you transfer your estate to your children, to your family, to charitable giving, community and organizations, religious organizations, whatever it is that you want to do. You want to do that, the timing of it, when do you do it, all of that planning. If you do it before you sell, you're going to be much better position. So that all of this is what you need to plan for, and takes time to develop and important to do. And that's why having the right resources, right advisors, right mindset, before you sell your company is going to go a long ways in having a very peaceful and transformative life after you exit your company. So the retirement right now, like I said, retirement is a loaded word, right? For me, retirement is different than what retirement means for somebody else. But you have to recognize that retirement. So manage the loss of identity. I don't think you realize how much of your value to the people who valued you while you're in business were tied to the value of the business, right? So once you're not the controlling entity of that business, there's going to be a few people who are going to just pretend or act like they never even knew you. So you have to then capture back your new identity that draws from what you did, draws from who you are, right? So your identity for others is dependent on the presentations, right, that you put together and the associations that you do. But your real value, your true value, came from who you are as an individual. And that does not change, but you have to work at transferring that into the new framework. So managing your loss of identity from not being the CEO or the owner of XYZ, but being the person who's achieved all these things and accomplished person that you are. So transferring that identity to an accomplished entrepreneur and mentor, advisor, consultant, free bird, and don't bother me now, whatever that means, right? So you have to be cognizant of those things and make sure that you actually think about those things. Know about your family's expectations. What do your children expect? What does your wife expect? What do your parents expect? What do your siblings expect out of you now that you're retired? They might have their own plans. They might have their own ideas what that is. And in order to manage the process well, you have to communicate to them what you expect to be and make sure that they are cognizant of it. And then if they have specific expectations, if they have worries about who you will become or not become post-retirement, you need to address those. Just like you're managing client expectations when you are in business, right? You're managing client expectations, you're managing your employee expectations, you're managing subcontractor, subconsultant expectations. All of those things you're managing, that same skill set now has to be applied towards the family expectations because that's a big deal. And they're consciously thinking about a lot of items that are going to be important to you. Balancing the emotional, intellectual health, family, and personal needs. It's a big umbrella. So we talked about a little bit of the emotional, the loss of ownership identity that you will feel, the loss of your company, that your baby that you bought, or some of you or many of you, the emotional release right after the sale. Oh, I don't have to now be responsible for all these lives. I don't have to be responsible for all these dollars, right? So that also happens. So that pressure release is real and happens as well. But intellectually, you are being challenged every day, solving problems, creating a better world. Where do you channel that part of you, and how do you continue to do that? To many of you, that is important. Some of you, that may not be important. You've done your piece, and you're okay, ready to move on. But knowing that part is important. The health part. What most people underestimate is the longevity of their lives. With modern medicine, everybody's living longer. So, and you start off in looking, so I've got 10 more years post-retirement. I've got 15 more years. What if you live to 30 more years post-retirement, right? So under current situation, if you don't do it, so it is important to take care of your health. And many entrepreneurs are not that great at focusing on their health, their personal well-being. Their entire focus is on their client, their service, their company, their people, right? And many people don't even know how much you care about them. and how much you care about the business part of it, how much you care about the projects, the clients, things. But that stress is taking a toll. And as you exit the business and you're looking for a longer life, but also as you age, you are going to feel. So that is important in understanding the health aspect and paying attention to being healthy mentally and emotionally is an important aspect of planning your retirement style after the fact. And all of this thing that I talked about, who you are, who you associate with, what are you doing after retirement, is all part of your individual well-being, and it affects the well-being of your family, right? So if you become anxious after the sale because now you don't know what to do, if you have a insecurity about who am I, that's going to affect your family, right? If you feel like, okay, now I'm free, but I don't have to do anything, and your wife might be expecting you to contribute more towards the taking care of the house, for example, right? So all of those things are important to deal with as part of it. And then your personal needs. What is it that you want to do? I've asked that question. What is your ideal retirement looks like? For some people, it is teaching a small class part-time to transfer the wealth of knowledge they've gathered. But have you actually talked about where you will do it? Whether the university has an opening for something like that, whether the community college is the right way to do it, whether your association like the AIA is where you're going to do it, right? How are you going to do it? All of that, people are not going to just walk up and say, okay, oh, you need a job? Come on, here's the job you want. And then once you take the job and you realize that, oh, I never did that job in my entire life. I don't know how to do that job and how to prepare for that job. So again, um, uh, preparing for a change and recognizing that that's a change is a very important part of this. Some of you will go through an imposter syndrome after the fact, and because you don't have the control the purse, or people don't jump when you make a phone call, for example. You have to get used to that, and you have to deal with that. So those are kind of things that are important part of planning towards a successful exit in what I call the millionaire exit, not only in the money value, but millionaire in your mind, and having a very empowering exit, and that can be sustained and enriching and even growing beyond what you anticipated at the time that you were in business. So with that, I'll stop here. And if you have questions, thank you very much for coming. I'll minimize this so I can go back and look at uh, you if you have it. So you can click on this with your phone and get to my LinkedIn page or what you want to do. But Kathy, I'll hand over to you. Do you have anybody has written questions, or we'll open it up?
Well, thank you very much, Samir. It's a lot to keep in mind. It makes me want to wish I had a business to sell. If anybody has any questions, feel free to turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and just ask. No, he pretty much covered everything.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And they can always reach me anytime they have something else going on. If they want something to get back to me, they have my contacts. But yeah, it's a process. It's not unlike the code classes when I would teach them. You would see that and immediately go back to your work and you can apply that. This is something you have to digest, think about it, and grow into it. So I understand that.
And we will have a video available. We are recording this, so if you wanted to go back and listen to the part you missed or you didn't quite grasp, we will have that available for you with Samir's slides. So I will send those out to everyone who signed up. All right, well, unless anyone else has any questions, we appreciate your time, Samir, and I'm sorry we're going to miss you on Friday.
Yeah, I was hoping to make it, but I'm still in Seattle. I will come down to Portland. We're remodeling our home. We'll come back kind of Q1 of next year. It's like construction. You can always predict the schedule, but you can also guarantee that it will not be hit. It will always grow beyond the expectations. That's where we are.
Well, I understand that we're going to try and record it, so maybe you can
Yes.
catch a little bit of it later. All right, well,
Sounds
thank you everyone for coming, and I will talk to you later, Samir.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.